Due to a worm space anomaly, today's recording took place in an airlock bathroom. As such, it is of the worst quality imaginable. Thanks for listening. Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today, we're discussing Farscape, Season 4, Episode 8. I shrink, therefore I am. John has to die hard against a group of mercenaries who use shrinking technology.
I really like this episode.
It's a good one.
That's probably why I like it.
I mean, it is pretty much Die Hard. John literally says it's Die Hard. I'm actually a bit sad that it's not more Die Hard.
I have a bazooka gun now, ha ha ha.
No, I mean, he takes out two of them, and then the other three end up cornering him and die through something that wasn't directly his action.
He facilitated that.
He got lucky.
Yeah, he didn't know that was possible.
Plus, he kind of just said, "Hey, your boss is a Scaran," and they were like, "Oh no!" When they deliberately went against that trope earlier in the episode, when Chiena and Sukozu are doing the whole "Oh no, I feel sick" escape routine. And the mercenaries were incredibly brutal sounding and made it clear that it doesn't matter what they say.
But everyone hates Scarans.
Everyone hates Scarans. Then they could all just say different people are Scarans.
It's the magic bullet. You just say, hey, that person may be a Scaran, and then it gets you out of a jam.
Yeah, and if they're not, say, well, what about that guy?
Yeah, just keep going down the line.
They all have to take their helmets off. The mercenaries, I forget what species Scorpius says they are, but they were really tough.
It took several bazooka shots to take one down.
And yeah, they had to stab one through the body.
I was really glad one of his plans didn't work. The decapitation failed.
The decapitation failed?
Yeah, with the DRDs.
Oh, shooting them in the face repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work. That's kind of nice. It is nice that he ended up running out of ideas. As much as I would like to see John continually MacGyver his way out of everything again and again.
Oh, and he teamed up with Scorpius at last. Their destiny has come.
They're going to be best frenemies.
They're going to high five and then suspiciously look at their hands.
Scorpius just escaped from his cell.
For fun.
Apparently he could do that anytime.
He had to entertain himself somehow.
You said before that Scorpius is playing the long con. Is he just a friend now?
His long con was to be a friend.
Yeah, and then eventually he'll turn around and say, haha, we're friends now.
Yep. No one would see that coming. That's the only way he knows how to make friends. That's why he has no friends. It's very difficult to do this and pull it off.
He's threatened them into friendship by eliminating everything that is not friendship.
No one sees it coming. And then you become really good friends when it works.
I thought it was funny that John gave Scorpius an unloaded weapon.
and allowed him to walk into a situation where he could have easily died.
But why is it extra funny?
Because Scorpius didn't see it coming.
It's even cleverer than that. So you know how I said this episode is like Die Hard?
Oh, that happens in Die Hard.
Yeah, he gives Alan Rickman a gun, but it's not loaded. He also gives him the bazooka. What's that?
One thing I really like about this episode, so the title made me think instantly, okay, this is going to be an episode about shrinking small to solve some problem, probably about Moya, that they couldn't do otherwise. So basically, what they do with Rigel all the time, but on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
And I was ready to be very bored. And then we get this episode, and I was very entertained, and you don't see any shrinking until halfway through. And then it has nothing to do with solving a problem. It's the antagonist using it to imprison people. I was so happy to be way wrong, and I've never seen a use of shrinking like that, where it's not just let's solve this problem, or on a larger scale where the person wants to shrink the world or something like that. This specific use may not be unique, but it's not done so often that it felt tired.
The shrinking was just one step in a plan, which I actually wish they'd used more of. The mercenaries shrinking people, hostages, and then storing them inside their own body is that's really good.
It's weird, and I liked it a lot, but I like how they didn't treat it as something special, because if the mercenaries do this thing all the time, it's not like they would be impressed by it.
It seemed almost inconsequential.
Yeah, they could have easily thrown them all in a cell or something.
Yeah. The mercenaries were so tough that he was not even particularly worried about not killing the hostages.
Yeah.
So I think they started probably with the shrinking hostages idea, so that the enemies and the hostages kind of become the same thing. But then they made them really tough and had all this plot with the Scarran hiding amongst them and stuff, and that was all really cool.
I also really like the magnetic cuffs, because then we got these neat visuals of them in the little cans, where they weren't just hanging out in there; they were stuck in their positions. I don't know. It was just a slight change, and I liked that they did that.
It's helpful too, because if they weren't magnetic and you rolled the can around,
oh god,
people inside would be horribly wounded, if not killed. I would have liked to see the mercenaries be weaker, but maybe like if they exploded when they died or something.
What?
So that the hostages being shrunk and inside them was a really legitimate problem.
Oh.
Like, if without that, John would just take them down, no problem. But now they have that. He has to really MacGyver stuff.
They're so tough that it doesn't... I didn't feel like the hostages were in that much danger with...
They were safer.
Yeah.
Be in more danger if they're outside the cans.
You have to directly aim for that tiny can for them to... Even then.
Yeah, they're indestructible. The mercs were super tough. I don't know, I like how it's not a huge focus, how it's a step in a larger plan. As you say, shrinking is often... Do you remember that meme where it's like step 1, shrinking, step 2, a load of question marks, step 3, profit?
Yeah.
That's what shrinking usually is.
I don't think I've ever been impressed by shrinking in a show or movie until this.
There was going to be more stuff Aaron rides in on a DRD
Right.
and disables the prowler. There was supposed to be a bunch more stuff with that, but Claudia Black was really ill and it had to be cut.
I'm glad that happened. That was my least favorite part of the shrinking stuff.
It was a little bit silly.
It was a little bit silly, and I didn't like Erin exposing herself. That sounds terrible. I didn't like Erin making herself so vulnerable. You're a tiny little thing, and she was out in the world. Just stay in your can and be safe. Wait for John to fix things.
It'd be cool if she got in the DRD.
I would have liked that more.
I was driving it around by hacking the insides. It felt a touch comical when that happened in an episode that was otherwise not really comical.
Maybe it was a tone thing, yeah.
There is a scene that I particularly like in this episode where Sukozu is trying to argue against the shrinking technology, making scientific sense.
I love that they threw that in there. That's the stuff you never hear in shrinking episodes or movies.
Rigel shuts her down, which is, I think, it kind of is a summary of this show's attitude towards technical level. Like, yeah, shrinking doesn't really make sense. There's not technology that is really possible. But it's a good plot device. Well, in this, it is. And that makes it worth telling a story about. And Rigel basically just says, who cares?
And he's right, who cares when you get good episodes like this?
I think some shows do get stuck too much on the science of things. I mean, it is science fiction. You can make stuff up. It doesn't have to quite make sense. It helps if it does make sense, but don't try and needle everything together too well. And if it doesn't make sense, don't start addressing it from a scientific standpoint. Just say, we don't know how it works, and move on.
But also make a good episode to distract us.
Yeah, it depends on how it is all framed and everything. And it's a big difference. I've ranted about this so many times, but here they just have shrinking technology and no one knows how it works. It's not, hey, we hit you with magnetic radiation and you get small. Because then you know that it's just a load of rubbish.
There is one thing I didn't like about this episode, and it's so minor. John quotes a famous quote, "One small step for man," except that's wrong. And he should know that as an astronaut.
One small step for a man.
Right.
It's a oft disputed quote.
If you don't say amen, that quote is weird.
Yeah, that's what he intended to say, and that's what actually makes sense. The actual recording is unclear, and it's likely he was a little bit preoccupied. But yeah, as an astronaut, John should know the canonical reading of that.
I did enjoy him stepping on that guy, though.
It's inevitable that someone's going to get stepped on when there's shrinking tech in Farscape. Well, I say that, actually. This is not the first time shrinking technology has been in the show.
How am I blanking on this? I don't remember.
Remember back in season 1 when they land on the asteroid and they meet Emily, the bone eater?
Yes. Oh, right.
The big leafy guy has shrinking tech and shrink Zan.
Yeah.
No one got stepped on there. So maybe this whole episode was because they realized that they had shrinking tech and no one got stepped on.
They had to right the wrong.
Yeah. Brought back the shrinking tech and got someone stepped on.
That final battle was really funny to me. I really liked it. We were talking about tone earlier, and that battle is really goofy, but it works because it's the end. It's not. I mean, Aaron's bit was right before this, but things hadn't settled yet.
There's different kinds of comedy. So when Aaron rides in on the DRT and falls off, it's kind of slapstick.
Yeah.
When John and the other guy are constantly changing size, it's not slapstick. It's much more kind of black comedy because they are trying to kill each other. Whoever presses the buttons faster will murder the other one in a horrible way. It's not. It is funny, but it's not slapstick particularly. Although it's something that's incredibly savage, wrapped in a ridiculous sort of context.
You brought up the buttons, and that reminded me just how funny that was. That as soon as John is inputting the sequence, then the other guy frantically is tapping too, and it's such a funny visual.
Yeah, it's really good. He was a Scarran, but he was a Scarran from the ruling caste, which meant his head was not long. And he also didn't have heat things, heat beams that they launched from their hand. Or maybe he did, but he didn't use them.
That's beneath the ruling class.
Ruling caste?
Oh, whatever. He's dead.
Caste is a birthright thing. He also had mind reading to a much higher degree than other Scarrans. He passively picked up what Rigel was thinking. Or maybe Rigel is just got a really leaky brain.
He was throwing his voice.
He was trying to convince the guy that he could mind read by doing ventriloquism.
See, secret hero.
That makes no sense.
He's trying to throw him off by telling him exactly what would happen.
Because he knew John would change his plan.
Right, John could adapt. He knew if he let John stick to his original plan, it wouldn't work. Yeah, so he revealed it.
Don't be obvious.
There were a lot of funny parts in this episode, now that I think about it.
Such as Naranti floating past the window whilst they're arguing with the hostages.
That, Aaron's face when they call John ingenious. Scorpius lamenting that he may have joined the wrong side.
Yeah, that's good because he's been 100%. I'm a nice guy. And he just casually says, "Oh, maybe I joined the wrong side." It reinforces that there is a distinct chance that everything he does is motivated for a different reason. This episode had a few callbacks to previous episodes.
What, like Shanna being blind?
Shanna, well, that's another thing. She used her eye abilities again, and this time was blind for most of the episode.
That seemed like a weird choice.
What seemed like a weird choice?
That she's blind in that can until she's not, and she doesn't really do anything.
But she didn't know that she was going to go in a can. She just saw them inputting secret codes, so...
Oh, right, the vital codes.
Yeah, well, you don't know what it is, but it seemed pretty secretive, so why not scoop up that information whilst you have the chance? I mean, she's a hostage anyway.
Okay, fine. It makes perfect sense.
It's super convenient. Like, they weren't just ordering lunch or something. Yeah, the links to previous episodes. Rigel mentions the Tarkin shield belts.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they would have helped Well, John never got shot particularly, so I don't think so. And at the start, John says maybe the game's not over, referring to the game in the previous episode.
Right. I obviously heard these things, but it was so seamless. It didn't seem forced. It just felt natural that these people would talk about things that have happened to them.
It's different. A lot of shows where there's a lot of fillery episodes or just standalone episodes don't connect up as specifically as these do. I mean, they don't linger on it, but
yeah, the non-lingering, that's what makes it good.
Yeah. And at the end, Pilot says they are going to travel to tormented space.
Which I don't remember.
He says Captain Dario was cool with it, and he's just asking if other people if it's okay to go to tormented space.
Wait, are you saying this is a reference to an earlier episode?
No, it's reference to just stuff.
Oh, okay.
Of some kind.
I thought, okay.
They have never mentioned tormented space before now. It's always been the uncharted territories.
With a name like that, it doesn't sound very good.
No. I mean, you get this a lot on Star Trek Voyager, where every 20 or so episodes they come on a new... They travel through a new, scarier sounding bit of space, and on that show usually it's just exactly the same.
I have a feeling it will be different here.
Do you think tormented space will be suitably more tormented than the uncharted territories?
It will be Scorpius's Disneyland.
That sounds really bad. They should not go there.
But they have to.
They don't have to. They are choosing to go there because it sounds cool.
That's why they have to. You can't hear about something called tormented space and not go.
They only just brought it up. It would be cool if they mentioned it earlier. I think that would be a lot better if tormented space had been like a known border at the edge of uncharted territories. And a lot of times they've gone, oh no, we shouldn't go there, we'll definitely die. If they've been doing that for 3.5 seasons, then they get here and say, okay, now we're going to tormented space, then that would be meaningful, but instead it's just like, oh, should we go to Bizarro World? Yeah. It's just a name.
And they wouldn't have to use a word like tormented if they had done what you said. Let's go to the edge or whatever. Something
Sector
really
7 or something.
Oh yeah, even better. Something more generic.
Yeah, frame it as a kind of Chekhov's gun that you leave sitting for a very long time.
But all the cool kids know you're not supposed to talk about tormented space. That's why it never came up. They're all cool kids.
Why is it called tormented space? There are a lot of places on Earth that are not pleasant, and they're just called like North Korea and stuff. They're not like tormented Korea.
Death Valley?
Okay, yeah, that is a good one. But to be fair, if you go in there, you will probably die. So yeah, maybe they will be tormented. They're not tormented by the end of the next episode, then I'm calling bullshit on it being tormented space.
It was actually discovered by Robert Tormented. That's why it's called that. People think it's a place you get tormented, but it's just the guy's name. People fought the naming and lost.
Do you have a quote from this episode which you would like to share?
I've been around long enough to know how ignorant I am. I don't assume the universe obeys my preconceptions, but I know a thrilling fact when it hits me in the face.
Yep. Rigel argues against bad science fiction.
It's fantastic.
It's good because it fits perfectly in the scene, and I really think it is also a meta-analysis of how sci-fi concepts are broadcast. Maybe it's not, but it feels like it.
It does feel like it, but not in a way where in that moment I felt like the writers were yelling at me and trying to force this idea into my brain. It felt natural, it felt good, but it also felt like there was a larger meaning.
It applies, that kind of sentiment applies in other, like, I've listened to debates where people have tried to argue against things that actually are. For example, here's a situation, it was either caused by A or B, and then they'll argue against both A and B. But it must be one of them. You know, you can't just dispute everything. Try and stay grounded in what is actually real. It's also good that Rigel, who's been the most travelled by a long way, despite the fact that he is ultimately quite pampered and spoiled, and in his life as a Dominar was probably quite shielded from everything.
Yes.
He has easily the most experience of the crew in terms of the world and the universe.
Yet he's never the voice of reason. Well, not never.
He often calls things out that are right. Less so in season 3. Wasn't he asleep in the can?
Yeah, he was.
Well, catch up on some sleep, I guess. Classic Rigel. Let's move forward to the next episode.
I like that idea. I'm going to do that.
See how tormented we are.
It's the guy's name.
Okay.
I'm not Robert Tormented.
Neither am I, but maybe after the next episode we both will be. I'm sure that's how that works. Okay, let's go.
Bye.